Elon Musk making those big promises at Tesla event last night, but can the company actually deliver on those lofty expectations? Joining us now, we want to bring in Garrett Nelson. He's an analyst with CFRA. And Garrett, it's great to talk to you. Our autos reporter Praz was just breaking down the biggest takeaways from the event last night. And when you take a look at the street's reaction this morning, investors clearly are not satisfied with what they heard. What do you think it is that's dragging the stock lower? Is it the lack of details?
Thanks for having me. We think that's exactly it. We were really disappointed by the lack of detail regarding their near-term and intermediate-term product roadmap. Again, as Pras said, no mention of the more affordable EV model, a lot of people calling the Model 2, nothing about that, nothing about the Roadster. Both of those vehicles, if you look on the last conference call, Elon Musk said that they would be in first production, sometime next year. So, the event was sort of like watching a movie with a lot of plot twists and special effects. And at the end, you're walking out, kind of scratching your head. You're talking it over with your friend, trying to figure out what you just witnessed. So, and we had to rewatch it at the end of it just to kind of make sense of everything. But it was really short on detail and long on special effects, kind of what we were expecting, just given the setup with the event being held at the Warner Brothers studio in Burbank.
Oh, Garrett, the fact that you rewatched it again, it must have been a very, very late night for you last night. But Garrett, when you see the type of reaction that we're seeing this morning, is this just the start of a bigger sell-off, do you think? Garrett?
Oh.
All right, we're having some issues with Garrett's connection. Do we have him, guys?
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
No worries, no worries. I was just talking about the fact that we're already seeing this type of the significance of this reaction with the stock off nearly 7% ahead of the open. Do you think that this is just the start of a much larger pullback here for Tesla?
It could be. You look at the dramatic run up in the stock really ever since April. In July, we moved to a hold, just given this massive multiple expansion that we've seen in the stock. If you look at where it's trading on consensus estimates, the stock, where it closed yesterday, is trading at 75 times consensus estimates for next year. Looking out to 2026, it's trading at 57 times. So these are really pretty lofty multiples. And here we're left with a lot of questions regarding how it's going to achieve that earnings growth that is embedded in expectations over the next few years. Like they said, the RoboCab, you're talking first production, by 2027, but that doesn't do anything to really clear up the intermediate term, which was our big issue with the story. And as you know, I've been a longtime bull on Tesla. We're much more cautious here. We have been since July, just given the lack of clarity, the lack of transparency as far as what's going to drive the earnings growth over the next few years. This is a high growth stock whose growth has really hit a wall here recently.
And so with that in mind, I mean, even bulls like yourself have had to acknowledge the history that Elon Musk and Tesla have of not meeting timelines that they communicate to the street, as kind of, luscious and amazing as they might seem, tied to the products that are being unveiled. At what point do you have to say, okay, we need to trim our expectations of what Tesla is actually going to produce that investors can rely on to be directly translated to shareholder value?
That's a good question. And what Musk has been really good at is keeping investors focused on the long term, products that are several years out, maybe even a decade or more out. And so, he's continuously, if you look back, a decade ago, he was promising fully autonomous vehicles only a year or two away. Here we are in 2024, and it's still, that we think Tesla is still a ways away from that. So, but it remains to be seen. Are investors going to be focused, looking out many years? Or are they be looking at the intermediate term and at estimates, which I think are probably too high and are going to have to come down, just given the realities of slowing EV sales and a lot of lack of transparency regarding the near-term product pipeline. Is the new mass market EV model still coming next year? is the Roadster coming? We're left with more questions than answers after the event last night.
And so with the lack of clarity in that product pipeline as well as timelines around it, who's the biggest winner if Tesla doesn't deliver on some of those items?
That's a good question. I would argue other automakers are winner. If Tesla loses, then other traditional automakers, many of whom are also working on autonomous driving products, perhaps GM with the GM Cruise, Waymo, those Uber, those companies are probably winners just given the disappointment here following this event.
Garrett, great to have you here this morning. We're tracking shares of those automakers, tracking shares of Uber right now, jumping even as perhaps there's a sigh of relief over in Daraland right now. Garrett Nelson, CFRA analyst, thanks so much for taking the time here.
Thank you.